Brad, it's been a while since we've really talked. What do you think the State of the Union is?
Well, I think we're really toxic, and I think we've become very tribal in how we approach our politics. The rise of nationalism has been very concerning to me. I grew up wondering how so much could happen. Good and decent German people could be physically and intellectually intimidated into silence in the 1930s, and bad things could happen in that country. I'm not saying we've got the rise of Nazism here, but we've got people who are piping up in the public square that we never would have found that socially acceptable as a culture. First Amendment rights notwithstanding, there's stuff. There are people that are empowered today to spew some absolutely vile stuff, and I think this goes back to us. We used to say, "What will the neighbors think?" and now we don't even know the neighbors' names. And I think it's a symptom of a much deeper sickness. And by sickness, I mean kind of a wasting away of our culture and our unity as Americans. We see ourselves in these silos, these subgroups, well before we see each other as fellow Americans, and that's not good for a republic.
So we're not only seeing people say crazy things, but we're at the same time seeing voices silenced, and to me that is just as concerning. That these organizations, they can do whatever they want because after all they're not part of the government. The First Amendment applies really to the government. We are seeing an organization or several organizations that are getting so massive that you could lose freedom of speech and the Constitution would have nothing to say about it.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of comparisons made to kind of the monopolies of railroads and steel and all of those titans of industry. And that argument is one that resonates to a certain degree with me. We see people thrown off of Facebook, thrown off of Twitter, thrown off of YouTube. We always said in this country that the answer to bad speech is not less speech, it's more speech. It's a competition of ideas and who's better. Whose ideas are better. It concerns me that some people, again, this siloing, I am concerned that we have people who are only getting their news from Facebook. And I don't care if you're left, right, or center. That's not a good idea to gather all your news from Facebook, regardless of what your politics are. We've become lazy. We've become spiritually lazy. We've become civically lazy, and we've become intellectually lazy in this country. We have it better. Jonah Goldberg's book, Suicide of the West, was so fantastic because he said, we're at the top of the mountain. And if we're not careful, if you lean too far forward, too far back, too far left, too far right, you fall off the top of the mountain. This is the best point in the history of the world to be alive, and we're in the greatest country to be alive in. But if we aren't careful, we are going to lose it. And so this laziness across those areas that I just explained really does concern me because we are not fighting enough for free speech. Glenn, I put a self-destruct program on my Twitter account. My tweets don't last more than 2 weeks now because I don't want somebody bringing up a great joke I made after a back and forth with Pat or Stu on Twitter and dragging it up from 5 years ago and saying, hey, wait a second, this sounds terrible. Well, in the context of 5 years ago, it was really funny because I'd been on the show with Glenn and we had joked about this and I made the joke on Twitter afterwards. That kind of stuff really, as an author, someone who makes his living by expressing himself and with words, it freaks the hell out of me.
So yesterday, I've been feeling this for a while, that, we're living in a digital age, and when you look at, for instance, the movies you buy, you don't actually buy them. You're still renting them. You're leasing them from Apple or anybody else because they don't own the rights. They lease the rights. And so when Disney comes out with their own platform, most likely Disney's going to say, okay, you can only get our movies from our platform. So if you bought all those Disney movies digitally, when that license expires with Disney, if Disney decides not to continue the license with Apple, you lose all of that. And it is amazing to me how we could silence somebody who has a lifetime of work and all of their work could be gone almost overnight. You could take back all of the books unless they're in print. You could take back all of the books. You could take back all of their videos. They're gone. You could silence their voice and put them behind a wall. Does this concern you at all, or is this just me being too paranoid?
No, listen, I agree 100%. It's a push-pull, right? Remember when U2 had that album and everybody was forced to receive the album?
Yes.
I mean, it's a two-way street, so stuff can be pushed on you and it can be removed. You could have the version on your Kindle of a book replaced with an edited version. So without your permission, they can do something like that via not just Kindle, but any e-platform at all. So when you're dealing with digital, listen, the smartest thing my wife ever did was she went out and bought all Mel Brooks's movies on DVD because we didn't want to lose them. There's movies that I think are very funny that Mel Brooks did that if you tried to do them today, you'd never be able to get them done. In fact, Mel Brooks would be the public pillory; he'd be dragged to it. So, yes, that is a concern. The more we are reliant on digital, this is precisely why I don't do online banking. I don't like the idea of somebody being able – and, yeah, you have to give your permission to pay bills and all this kind of stuff. I still do paper checks. It's just the way I am. I just don't like surrendering everything to digital. I think it comes with a lot of risk. And you couple that with the story you opened up this segment with about the article in the New York Times about us, flexing our muscles with Russia in cyberspace with threatening their grid system. This is pretty serious, and the more reliant we are on digital, the more susceptible we are to great havoc.